December 4th, 1872, the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. A British ship spots something strange on the horizon. Another ship, sails unfurled, moving oddly, drifting. The crew changes course to investigate. As they get closer, something becomes clear. There's no one at the wheel. They board the vessel. The cargo is intact. The ship is seaworthy. Food sits in the galley. The captain's logbook lies open on his desk, but there is not a single person on board. 10 people. A captain, his wife, his 2-year-old daughter, and 7 experienced crew members. Gone. This is the Mary Celeste. And what they found on board is more disturbing than any theory could explain. To understand what happened to the Mary Celeste, you need to understand who was on board. Captain Benjamin Briggs was no amateur. At 37 years old, he was one of the most experienced captains in the American merchant fleet. Devoutly religious, responsible, careful, he brought his wife, Sarah, and their 2-year-old daughter, Sophia, on this voyage. It was meant to be a family journey across the Atlantic, from New York to Genoa, Italy. His crew of 7 were experienced seamen, men who had sailed the Atlantic dozens of times, men who knew how to handle a ship in any weather. On November 7, 1872, the Mary Celeste departed New York Harbor. Her hold was filled with 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol, denatured alcohol meant for fortifying wine in Italy. The ship was in perfect condition, fully stocked with food and fresh water for the journey. 6 months' worth of provisions. Captain Briggs expected the journey to take about 3 weeks. It was a routine voyage, one he'd made variations of many times before. Everything was normal. For the first week, the voyage went according to plan. Captain Briggs made regular entries in the ship's log. Weather conditions, position, course corrections, everything you'd expect from an experienced captain. And then, on November 25, 1872, the log entries stopped. The final entry simply noted their position, off the coast of the Azores Islands, about 400 miles from Portugal. Nothing indicated trouble, no storm warnings, no distress, just the last entry. 9 days later, on December 4, 1872, another ship was crossing the Atlantic. The Dei Gratia, a British brigantine captained by David Morehouse. Morehouse and Briggs knew each other. They'd dined together in New York just before both ships departed. They were heading to the same destination. Around noon, Morehouse's crew spotted a ship in the distance. It was moving erratically, gagging. Its sails were partially set, some torn, flapping in the wind. Something was wrong. As the Dei Gratia approached, they recognized the ship, the Mary Celeste. Morehouse knew Captain Briggs was on that vessel, with his family. They tried hailing the ship, no response. They fired a signal cannon, nothing. The Mary Celeste just drifted, silent. Morehouse sent 2 crew members in a small boat to board the Mary Celeste. What they found would become one of maritime history's greatest mysteries. The deck was deserted. Ropes lay coiled neatly. The ship's wheel was lashed in position, but there was no one at the helm. No one anywhere, they called out. Their voices echoed through the empty ship. Silence, they descended below deck. The cargo hold was intact. All the 1,700 barrels of alcohol were there. 9 had been opened, but the rest were sealed. The crew's quarters were tidy. Clothes hung on pegs, personal belongings undisturbed. Tobacco pipes still sitting on bunks. In the captain's quarters, the bed was unmade. A child's toys lay scattered on the floor. An imprint of a small body still visible on the mattress where Sophia had been sleeping. Captain Briggs's sextant and navigation tools were missing. The ship's chronometer was gone. The ship's register, the crew list, was missing. In the galley, food was still on plates, some of it freshly cooked. Whoever had been eating hadn't finished their meal. But here's what disturbed the boarding party most. The ship's lifeboat was gone. The ropes that secured it had been cut, or torn away quickly. 10 people had abandoned a perfectly seaworthy ship, taking only a lifeboat, a sextant, and the ship's papers. And they had left everything else behind. The ship had enough food and water for 6 months. The cargo was valuable. The weather that day was calm. There was no reason to abandon ship, but they did. The Dei Gratia crew towed the Mary Celeste to Gibraltar. A salvage claim was filed, but first there would be an investigation. The British authorities were suspicious. An abandoned ship with valuable cargo, found by friends of the missing captain. Could this be insurance fraud? Investigators combed every inch of the Mary Celeste. They found something strange. On the ship's rail, marks that looked like they'd been made by an axe, or a sword, as if there had been a struggle. In the captain's cabin, they found a sword under the bed, unsheathed, with what appeared to be bloodstains on the blade. This suggested violence, piracy, murder. But then, the blood was tested. It wasn't blood, it was rust, mixed with a red dye from the ship's cargo area. The sword marks on the rail? Not from violence, from normal wear and tear, ropes rubbing against wood. Every theory of foul play fell apart under scrutiny. There was no evidence of piracy, no blood, no signs of struggle, no motive for the crew to mutiny against a captain they respected. The court was baffled. They ruled it an unsolvable mystery, paid out a partial salvage claim to the Dei Gratia crew, and closed the case. The Mary Celeste was sold at auction. For a fraction of its value, no one wanted to own a cursed ship, but the mystery had only just begun. For 150 years, people have tried to explain what happened to the Mary Celeste. Dozens of theories, some plausible, some absurd. Theory 1. Pirates attacked the ship. But this doesn't hold up. Pirates would have stolen the valuable cargo. They didn't. They would have taken the ship itself. They didn't. And there were no signs of violence. Theory 2. Captain Briggs and Captain Morehouse conspired. Stage an abandonment. Collect the insurance money. Split it. But Briggs was deeply religious, wealthy. He had no financial motive. He'd brought his wife and daughter on the voyage. Would he risk their lives for money he didn't need? Unlikely. Theory 3. A sea monster, giant squid, attacked the ship. Crew fled in terror. This was actually a popular theory in the 1870s. But there was no damage to the ship. No broken railings. No torn sails from massive tentacles. And the lifeboat was launched calmly. Not in panic. Theory 4. A waterspout. A tornado at sea terrified the crew. They abandoned ship thinking it would capsize. But the weather records from that day show calm seas. And the captain's last log entry mentioned no storm. But there's one theory that modern experts believe explains everything. And it all comes down to those 9 barrels of alcohol that were opened. Industrial alcohol. Denatured alcohol. It's highly volatile. When it heats up, it releases vapors. Fumes that are invisible, but explosive. The Mary Celeste had been sailing for 3 weeks. Through varying weather, the barrels in the hold shifting, sloshing, some of them leaked. Modern analysis suggests this. A seiche, a pressure wave. The alcohol vapors built up in the hold. Then, something triggered a sudden release. Not an explosion with fire, but a burst of pressure. Loud, violent sounding. The hatches would have blown open, smoke and fumes pouring out. To Captain Briggs, standing on deck, it would have looked like his ship was about to explode. He would have smelled the alcohol fumes, heard the blast, seen the smoke. He had his wife, his 2-year-old daughter, 7 crew members depending on his decision. He had seconds to decide. He ordered everyone into the lifeboat, grabbed his sextant and the ship's papers, cut the lifeboat free. They would wait at a safe distance. If the ship exploded, they'd row to the nearest island. The Azores were only 400 miles away. If the ship didn't explode, they'd come back aboard. They attached a rope between the lifeboat and the Mary Celeste to stay connected, to be able to return. And they waited, watching the ship, expecting an explosion, but the explosion never came. What Captain Briggs didn't know was that the pressure wave wasn't an explosion. The alcohol hadn't ignited. There was no fire. The ship was fine. But as they waited in the lifeboat, the wind picked up. The seas became rougher. The rope connecting them to the Mary Celeste began to fray, and then it snapped. The Mary Celeste, its sails still partially set, began to drift away, faster than the lifeboat could row. Within an hour, it was gone over the horizon. Captain Briggs and his crew were alone in the Atlantic. in a small lifeboat 100 miles from land. They never made it to shore. None of the bodies were ever found. No wreckage from the lifeboat was ever recovered. 10 people lost at sea, all because of a false alarm that sounded like the end of the world. The Mary Celeste sailed on for 13 more years, but the ship was cursed. Every owner who bought it faced bankruptcy. Bad luck, misfortune. No crew wanted to sail on the ship where 10 people vanished. In 1885, the Mary Celeste was deliberately run aground in Haiti, an insurance scam by its final owner. The ship broke apart on the rocks and sank, taking the last of its secrets with it. The wreckage has never been found. Some say it's still down there, somewhere off the coast of Haiti, waiting to tell its story. But we know the truth now. The Mary Celeste wasn't a ghost ship. It was a tragedy. 10 people made a decision that saved them from a danger that didn't exist, and died because of it. The Mary Celeste mystery is solved, but the sadness remains. A ship that sailed itself, and the 10 people who never came home. If you want more maritime mysteries and forgotten history, subscribe to this channel, because sometimes the truth is more tragic than any legend.